Hey everyone, welcome back to No Reservations, Kasey Anton's Guide, that's me, to restaurant success. And this is episode 38. We're calling it Wine and Dine, but really it is about building a successful beverage program. And I am going to love this one because this one is all about making money, which most of these episodes have something to do with making money. But this is such an easy way for restaurants to add to their check average, to kind of create more of a spot in your customers' heads to remind them to go back to you. Because if you do actually spend some time building out a beverage program in your business, you will be unique because so many do not do this, or they do not do it well. They half-ass it, if at all. And that's noticed or unnoticed. And therefore, they're literally leaving money on the table by not doing something that is so easy. Talk about low-hanging fruit when it comes to making more money in a restaurant. Oh my God, this one drives me nuts that I don't see enough people doing it. So let's dive into a few of the different ways that you can develop, build, restructure, however you want to put it, a beverage program in your restaurant. And that's just a fancy name. It's literally just how you sell drinks, how you sell beverages. I'm not even talking about alcohol, although that's a big part of it. Could be a big part of it. It could be any type of drink. This is all going to be about perception, the way that you are going to show it to the guest. Okay. You know what? Right now, I'm actually thinking of this really great Instagram post. I reposted it on the Spark business page the other day, but right now it's May, and I don't know when this episode is going to air. But it was just to describe it to you. It was so simple. They were showing a little girl, maybe she was 6 or 7 years old, sitting in a it looked like a semi fancy-ish, casual dining to fine dining, like somewhere in the middle restaurant. I'm guessing maybe she was a picky eater, or maybe they just do this for any of their kids who you could tell that probably don't want to sit long. So what they did was they put this black, I think it was a black plate, but actually it really just looked like a round piece of like black slate almost, although you could probably use anything kind of cool. And they just had it sitting in front of this girl who clearly all she ordered to eat was like pasta and butter. If you know kids when they go out to eat, that's a big one next to chicken nuggets or whatever, like just plain pasta with butter or pasta with cheese, whatever. It's just one of the few things they'll eat. So what they did was they had this just plain black like platform, like plate in front of her. And then the linguine or spaghetti, whatever it was, that was hot and cooked was in this large wine glass. And what they did when they brought it out to her is they turned the wine glass upside down and they sort of circled it around her plate so that when the spaghetti or the linguine was coming out of the wine glass, it kind of just made this kind of cool, almost like braided look. I mean, this was not something that was trained in. It was very simple. Just pile a bunch of, linguine or spaghetti like in a big wine glass, turn it over on a plate, but like keep it close to the plate. Don't break the glass. And then slowly move the glass as you're letting the spaghetti pour out. It just creates this kind of cool effect. And the girl was mesmerized, right? She just thought she was the greatest thing. She thought that spaghetti definitely tastes better than any spaghetti she's ever had in her life, just because of the way it was presented. It was just a very, very cool look, but that's all it was. And I just thought it was so genius. So I reposted it because I'm telling you that little girl is probably going to remember that and probably going to, whatever their parents or family want to go out to eat, she's probably going to be like, I want to go to that place again, because she looked like a queen sitting there with that. It was just fantastic. But what's my whole point? My whole point is it's just about perception when it comes to, almost anything when it comes to restaurants. But that was a perception of a kid's dish. For this episode, the perception of a beverage program could be as simple as creating a separate printout, like a separate menu. It could just be a piece of paper, although I like to protect it. So maybe laminate it, maybe put it in something that's protected, that just lists beverages, and maybe you do a separate one for every type of beverage, depending on the concept that you have. It could be, of course, a wine list. If you have a wine list, let's just hope you have a wine list that's updated and that's not ugly as sin and doesn't have food or wine spilled all over it. So you have a wine list. Here's what I would just add about that while we're on the topic of wine lists. Again, this definitely depends on your concept, but I would say less is more. I mean, if you want to have a really big beverage program, a wine program, then that's fine. But the goal is that you want to turn over that wine inventory anywhere between 30 and 60 days. You want to be able to sell out of it. So you don't want to sit on a lot of wine. The exception could be if you plan on aging it yourself. Another exception, but one to be careful of, is if you're offered a drop. So like a discounted drop if you buy 5 or 10 cases or whatever, and they're going to give you a really good deal on it. That's okay if you know that wine is going to sell, that you're going to make money on it, and not sell in the next 5 years. Like, you really do want that wine to sell. Excuse me. If it's a 10 case drop, then maybe you give it 3 to 6 months. And then I would probably start really having your staff push it, because you want to turn over. I guess the bottom line is, every time you look at a bottle of wine, a bottle of liquor, sitting on your shelves, those are like little tiny, or maybe not so tiny, stacks of cash kind of locked up in the bottle. And every time you sell one, you release the cash and you get to put it in your bank account. Every time you don't, all that money is locked up on a shelf and you can't touch it. Like, literally picture locks on it. And that's not good, because we need cash flow in a restaurant. You need cash flow in any business, but certainly in a restaurant, you want that constant cash flow. So you don't want to be sitting on necessarily $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in inventory that you can't sell on the regular, sell out of it and replenish it. Like I said, between 30 and 60 days with few exceptions. That's really important. So if you are on one of the high-end steakhouses, you do kind of need that big awe moment of a large wine selection. And hopefully you probably have the tempered cages and things like that to be able to do that. That's not really what this podcast episode is about. That's completely separate. And you probably have a sommelier on staff. All that, you do you know better than I do. So there's that. If you're not one of those big steakhouses or restaurants that really have the wherewithal, the space, the expertise, et cetera, to carry a ton of wines, and certainly not the financial basis to do that, then I would definitely look to pare down your wine list. Ideally, I would say 8 to 10 whites and 8 to 10 reds and maybe 2 sparkling, maybe 3 out of rosé. Like, that's about it. Make them great. Like, really find out what the big sellers are, what your customers want. Have the varietals, right? You want a Chardonnay, maybe a couple. You want one that's oaky, one that's in stainless. You want a Sauvignon Blanc. Maybe you don't need a Chenin Blanc. Maybe you do. And I think your customers, depending overall, I think customers in general, especially with the smaller restaurants, appreciate a little bit less choices, but just know that whatever choice they make off your, let's say, 23, 25 bottle wine list is going to be a great one, depending on what you're looking for. I would go with that. If you're a small cafe, small restaurant, you don't necessarily need to carry 5 or 6 different Cabernets or Pinots or whatever it is. Just carry a couple that are tried, true, and tested. Maybe change it out as long as you're selling out of the other ones. So that's actually another really good point just came to my head. If you're with me on this and you're like, okay, I'm going to pare down and we're going to have a max 25 different bottles of wine. So 25 bottles is all you're going to carry. Then as you start to maybe sell out of a couple of them, you get down maybe the last 2, 3, or 4 bottles, and you don't want to, and you decide like that one's took a long time to sell. We want to replace it with something else, maybe seasonal or whatever. Then fine. Then add in the new wine, reprint your menus. And then you get to use those last 3, 4, 5 bottles as a hand sale, as a special. Now it's a special. It's the last ones left. So you can train your staff talk about it as, oh, we have a special wine addition to our wine list tonight, and it's, beautiful, and it's this and blah blah blah. All, it's just the way that they're going to say it, even though it's been on the list the entire time. Your customers aren't necessarily going to know that at all. So now you have a hand sell. So now you have even more wine varieties to choose from for your clients. So overall, that's how I feel about wine. When I walk into on the smaller side restaurant and I just see a huge list, because usually I can tell, like, oh, one of the owner must be a real fan of wines, or they can't say no to the wine purveyors that come in on the regular basis and things like that. It's like, oof, all I see is cash tied up on your shelves, and you don't want that. So be really, really, really smart about your wine program. But what I really want to get into on this episode that I think is simple and missed a lot are certainly the non-alcoholic, the mocktails. I mean, I know this is probably the 4th, 5th, or 6th episode I've talked about mocktails on, because while I see more and more of them added to beverage lists as I go out, I'm surprised I don't see way more than I'm seeing. I'm actually surprised that some of the larger restaurant almost chains aren't getting more on the mocktail train here. It's somewhat shocking to me. What I've been seeing lately is, usually if you look at their current cocktail list, you'll see a little subsection that might have 2 or 3 mocktails. And hey, that's a start. It's a start, but why not just create a separate, maybe a 5x7, like, doesn't have to be a full page, or it can be, but I'm just saying a 5x7. Here's our mocktails. You can add alcohol if you want, and you can have a nice upcharge for that. But here's our mocktails. Put them in really fun glasses, big martini glasses, big wine glasses, big highballs, whatever it is, with a fun garnish or two. And then charge $10, $11, $12, $14 for them. Yes, when someone looks at it, like, oh my God, that's $14. Yes. But if they see it somewhere else in the dining room and they see someone coming out with a gigantic martini glass, you can get them on Amazon. I know, because I just looked the other day, a gigantic, that has like this fun, colorful cocktail. Maybe you have a gummy candy or something, fun sticking out of it. That $14 is going to be the best $14 they ever spent, because they're like, wow, look at that. That's fun. I got to have one. That's a party in the glass for $14. So mocktails. I can't express it enough. You can charge more, especially if the aesthetics are beautiful. They're great for kids. They're great for adults. They're great for everyone. It's a great hand sell. It's just all around. And I definitely recommend creating a separate menu, a separate small, maybe it's just on cardstock. Maybe you put it in some plastic that you have, or an old menu or whatever, and just say, hey, here's our new mocktail list, and you can change it all you want. I just think they're fantastic. I can't believe that more people don't do them. So there's that. I also, a beer list if you sell beer. I noticed that some places just don't even bother putting beer out there, and then they make the servers recite what they have. I don't love that. Again, that could go like another 5x7 small menu. If you do sell beer, you should have it listed. There's that. And then, of course, the alcohol, the actual cocktails themselves. Most restaurants have those nailed in by now. Those are big. And those, you should have a separate menu. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, a separate menu for those. Make them fun. Make them seasonal. Always add a sangria if it makes sense for your concept. That's a good money. Mojitos, those are good, really good profit margins. If you can sell those, add some watermelon if the season is in, and people just go nuts for stuff like that. So definitely a separate cocktail menu, a separate mocktail menu, beer menu. Now you're thinking like, oh my God, how many menus do I have to bring? Well, it really depends on your concept and how your menus are right now. I'm not suggesting you create 5 separate menus unless that makes sense for you. I mean, you can. That's not what I'm suggesting. If you're a restaurant that actually has a full bar and you can do cocktails and you can do mocktails and you can do beer, then what I'm picturing now, which I love because we actually had them in our restaurant, and people love these menus. Large, oversized, bigger. I think they might have been 14 by 11 cardstock. They might have even been bigger than that. They were so fun. And we designed it so you'd have one quadrant that could be cocktails, another quadrant mocktails. Like, It was just so fun to hand out these giant menus, a little bit, cumbersome at the table, but they're not there for long. And if you think about it, those menus don't stay on the table that long. It's the first order that you take. But they were fun. They jumped out at you, and you could put everything in one place. So you could do beer, cocktails, mocktails, maybe on the back, have your wine list. I love doing them. I said, we had these oversized. We had them printed, I think locally, but now, I mean, you can get them printed online as long as you're ahead of the game and have those delivered to you in a few days. But it was great. It was just the visual of it was great. We definitely sold more drinks than probably anybody at that time. So that's what I'll say about that. And then I think the last program I really want to talk about is the coffee program. I feel like the after dinner coffee tea has really gone away. It's pretty rare that you see that. And I know I've talked about that a few times. And there's definitely a case to be made that you don't want people to sit around and buy a $4 coffee when you can reseat the table and get another $100 ahead or something like that. There might be a case for that. And if there is, and you have people waiting that are going to pay more than a $4 coffee, then maybe you don't push these menus. But overall, especially on slower nights, have this available, because if somebody were, when they cleared the entree plates from my table, were to sit down in front of me, a whole coffee list and have some fun, have a pistachio, whatever's going on, like have a couple of different fun coffees. Maybe you send out, complimentary biscotti with them. Yeah, maybe I'm going to take an extra few minutes and order one and sit down and relax and digest my meal without getting up and running to my next thing. And relax and enjoy it. And that will stick in my head for next time. Oh, I'm going to come here with my girlfriend next week, and or my girlfriends, maybe we'll get together and we'll have this great meal, and then we can all share, lattes or tea or whatever after, and just have this really nice moment at the end of our meal. You just don't see that a lot these days. And I think we can bring that back. I think it's important. I think that connection is important, the slowing down. And it can be also a really great seller. And come on, with hot or even iced beverages these days, thanks to Starbucks, you can go a little nuts, and they have great, great, great profit margins. If you just add some flavoring, add some whipped cream, add, a crystallized rim, there's just so many things that you can do, and it's worth it. To do a very small, again, maybe a 5x7 small menu. Maybe it's got your desserts and your coffee specialties on one. And then and here's a trick. We used to we didn't ask people for dessert if they wanted dessert. We just, as soon as the table was cleared and clean, we would automatically just bring over the dessert menu. So now they have to look at it. Of course they can say no, but if something spotted their eye, it looks good. Oh, maybe I can stay for that. So we just automatically brought them and set them down to get the sale. Huge difference versus asking, would you like dessert tonight? So easy to say no. So if you're looking to sell more desserts and coffees, definitely have your team just come by and set them down. And make sure that they're enjoyable to look at, the menus, enjoyable to read. So make sure you're using a layout that is nice and easy and soft on the eyes, big writing, little writing with the descriptions, have fun descriptions. If it makes sense, maybe a graphic or a picture or a photo or something of it so that can really sell. Here's a tip. I'm having ChatGPT right now do some graphics for a story that I've been writing, and they're coming out great. So perhaps you can ask ChatGPT, you can even upload a photo and ask it to do some type of stencil or fun graphic of one of your coffees or desserts and see what that comes out. And then, it's free, although I pay like $20 a month for chat. So maybe you have to use the pro version. I'm not sure or not, but it's worth a try. Because I definitely think that it's visual. I think that desserts, especially something that is kind of hard to sell, can be they can sell visually. So I like the idea of having some pictures on the menu, or it doesn't actually have to be a photo. Photos are great, but definitely a depiction of what it is, because I think people buy that stuff more with their eyes than they do with just hearing about it. So I think that about wraps it up. Of course, I didn't get into aperitifs and cognacs or whatnot. You do you when it comes to that. If you're a restaurant that sells a lot of those, then you know better than I do how to put those in front of people. I am just talking more about the low-hanging fruit, the stuff that people order, that most people order every day, from sodas and mocktails to coffees, lattes, iced beverages, teas, pictures of, and just making sure that you dedicate a menu for these things, a fun, beautiful, easy to read, easy on the eyes menu that you can have on your tables if it makes sense, or set in front of guests to look at, and watch the sales come in, because they will sell, especially if you train your staff to kind of point out a few and say, oh, we just tried this honeysuckle whatever with bee pollen. I don't know, I'm just making that up, and it was absolutely delicious. You can sell those, great profit margin, great way to increase that check average versus I'll just have ice water. So there is that. I hope I gave you some ideas of what to take and go into your beverage program with. Maybe it needs a revamp, a couple of menus. We do have downloadable menus, templates that you can use on our site, profitfirst4restaurants.com. And as always, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please, please, please share it, like it, leave a review, all the above. We really appreciate that, so we can keep airing. And we will see you on the next one. Thanks so much.